On the news, Boko Haram attacks Borno State's Chibok local government, kills 12 persons. Federal government shuts 18 foreign university campuses over issuance of fake degrees. And EFCC to question former Minister Farouk Sadia over alleged 37 billion naira fraud. Hello and welcome to News Now on TV360 Nigeria. I'm Simisola Atiku. The federal government has placed a ban on 18 foreign universities operating in the country while warning Nigerians to desist from enrolling in such institutions because they are unlicensed. Speaking on the development, the Federal Ministry of Education referred to the banned universities, 5 from the United States, 6 from the United Kingdom, and 3 Ghanaian tertiary institutions as degree mills. This comes after the ministry announced the temporary suspension of evaluation and accreditation of degree certificates from the Republic of Benin and Togo. Announcing the ban in a statement published on its website, the National Universities Commission explained that the federal government had not licensed the affected universities and they had been closed down. The decision to place a ban on 18 foreign universities comes after an investigative report which reveals how fake degrees from universities in Benin were being issued for a fee. The report exposed how officials from a Beninese university would produce fake degree certificates for anyone who was willing to pay, regardless of their qualifications. The Ministry of Education says it will take this opportunity to review its processes and ensure that only legitimate degrees are recognized. Reacting to the decision taken by the federal government, Professor Bolagade Jonathan of Mycology and Applied Microbiology at the University of Ibadan says although it's acceptable to study abroad, thorough investigation of the allegation is a welcome development. Bolagade added that the questionable ways of obtaining a certificate has adverse effect on the country's progress.
Okay, the decision of our federal government is a welcome decision. We have many of our Nigerian people that they are cutting corners. We have been hearing this for a very long time. So what the Ministry of Education actually did is a welcome thing that because we have many, even here, we have many of our people, because we lay so much emphasis on certificates. We have many universities in Nigeria. I don't know why people will leave Nigeria and they will go and study in Cotonou. We say we are giant of Africa. And beside that, some people want to cut corners. It's not only these 19 universities. We have many of these universities all over the world that you just pay and they just give you certificates. So what government have done is a right decision at the right time. Somebody that within 6 weeks, the course that is supposed to study for 4 years, because of the fact that the person is having money, the certificate was given after 6 weeks, and the person went for NYSC. It's not wrong to study in a foreign country, but we have many of them that you pay, they give you certificates. That is not a welcome development, and is what is actually affecting our development in Nigeria. One thing I realized that we lay so much emphasis on certificates. That's why why some people are doing this.
Fresh attack by Boko Haram terrorists on the Gartamawa community in Chibok local government area, Borno State, has left 12 people dead and 2 others injured. Confirming the attack on Wednesday, the Borno State Police Command said the attack happened on Monday evening. According to the police public relations officer Nahum Dasso, the gunmen drove into the community in Hilux vans and motorcycles in large numbers, shooting sporadically. The terrorists later attacked another Shisha community, killing 3 people and abducting 1 person, boiling houses and looting foodstuffs. Former Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development Sadiya Umar Farouk will on Wednesday face the detectives of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission (EFCC) over alleged fraud. Umar Farouk is being investigated over the sum of 37.1 billion naira that was allegedly laundered under her watch through a contractor, James Okwete. The former minister was invited last week by the anti-graft agency following a probe that was launched into her activities in the ministry, where she held sway in the last 6 years. Umar Farouk served as minister under former President Muhammadu Buhari from August 2019 to May 29, 2023. The federal government spent 375.8 billion naira on electricity subsidy between January and September in 2023, as power consumers paid a total of 782.6 billion naira for the commodity during the same period. Figures from the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, an agency of the federal government, shows that the government subsidized electricity in the first, second and third quarters of 2023. On subsidy payments, it was observed that in the first quarter of this year, the federal government subsidized power by 36 billion naira. This increased to 135.2 billion naira in the second quarter and jumped to 204.6 billion naira in the third quarter. Figures for the fourth quarter is yet to be released. Meanwhile, the Minister of Power, Adebayo Adelabu, has faulted the country's current pricing of gas utilized by gencos in US dollars. While speaking at a forum recently, the minister said the pricing of gas utilized by gencos in dollars affects the pricing of electricity to end users due to foreign exchange volatility, and it is the major issue in Nigeria's power sector. Earlier on, I spoke with Tayo Adegbenle, the executive director at Power Up Initiatives for Electricity Right. I began by asking him if subsidy on electricity is sustainable.
I think you should just swallow speed first, because you have modeled, you have compiled, you have added a lot of issues that we need to disaggregate and sort out one by one. If the direct question is if sustainable, if the subsidy on the electricity tariff, if it is sustainable, the immediate answer to that is no. Now, what we need to do is to, first of all, look at the underlying factors. And like I like to say, we need to be able to know the history of the subject matter before we can now delve into it and can make, because people can now understand why we need to look at that issue all over again. Is subsidy on itself a bad thing? The answer is no, it's not a bad thing. But is subsidy administration in Nigeria, is it serving the purpose for which it was meant to serve? The answer is no. Is government able to continue to fund subsidy? The answer is no. So everything that surrounds it, it outrightly says it is not a regime that should be sustained. Let me take you back a bit in history. I mean, not very far, but in 2019, 2020, the Minister of Finance then, Usman, told everybody in Nigeria the plain truth. And I think she wasn't even the first person to do that. When Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala was the coordinating Minister of Economy in Nigeria, that was as far back as 2010, 2011, 2012. That's what led to the Occupy Nigeria in 2012. It has been established that we cannot continue to carry subsidy. But how do we remove this subsidy has continued to plague every subsequent administration since the Goodluck Jonathan's administration. So eventually, for electricity specifically, eventually in 2020, the regulators introduced what we call the service-based tariff, which was designed in such a way that it will help to eventually remove the idea was to phase out gradually the tariff subsidy, the subsidy that we're paying on electricity tariff. So we need to put all this into consideration before we can easily jump on the topic. So to answer your question directly, I will say, like I said, no, no, no. The subsidy is not sustainable.
So in your opinion, how then should the challenge of poor electricity supply be tackled?
The operators of the power sector are not able to charge cost-reflective tariff to end users. The problem with that is government able to also pay when they are supposed to pay the shortfalls, market shortfalls? No. Apart from the market shortfalls, don't also forget that we have MDAs, we have the military, we have Air Force that are not also paying. You have the police formation, they are also not paying the cost of electricity. And in fact, the military bill, the debt of the military establishment to the power sector is into billions. How do you want the discos to make up for this? How do you want the people that took their money to go and pay for gas in dollars to make up for this? When the Q1 tariff was done, it was at an official rate of about 440 naira per dollar. By quarter three, officially, dollar was about 780. Basically, what that means is that if that's just the only cost of production, tariff should go times 2. Then we also have issues like forex. Inflation. Inflation as of January, February. I mean, as of December 2022, that were used to calculate the first quarter. Inflation was about 22%, by the 24%. By the time we were going back for the review in July, inflation has risen to about 28-29%. Now, that is the problem that we are having. We have increase in the cost of production of electricity. Government insisted that tariff should be frozen. Tariff review should be frozen. So we now have a situation where we now have a very big hole to dig.
So if cost-reflective tariff is enforced, what is the hope of SMEs and industries in the country?
See, I think at some point we will need to decide whether we want to run a social state, which I know for a certainty every student of history will tell you the system has failed in places like Russia, Poland, even China they have to open up their borders at some point, with all their communism. We cannot continue to run. This is not a social state. The power sector is no more NEPA. So we cannot continue to run a welfareism. It is either we are ready to run business and let the business run. Let them. I mean, you that you are talking, for instance, you set up a bakery, but somebody now tells you that the cost of one loaf of bread in your bakery is 5 naira. But because my people cannot afford it, you sell it at 3 naira. I will pay you 2 naira. And the person that says will pay you 2 naira for the number of loaves that you have sold is not paying you. How will you continue to be in business? How will you go back to go and buy more wheat to come and make more bread? See, at some point we need to be practical. And while we are saying this, I think, like I keep saying, we cannot close our eyes and solve the power sector problem alone without solving Nigeria's economic problem as a whole.
Well, that was Tayo Adegbenle, the Executive Director at Power Up Initiatives for Electricity Rights, lending his thoughts on whether subsidy on electricity is sustainable. We'll take a break here, but still ahead, U.S. President Joe Biden to kickstart 2024 campaign with focus on fight for democracy. Stay with us for details. Welcome back. Let's take you through our top stories. The federal government has placed a ban on 18 foreign universities operating in the country while warning Nigerians to desist from enrolling in the institutions because they are unlicensed. Speaking on the development, the Federal Ministry of Education referred to the banned universities, 5 from the United States, 6 from the United Kingdom, and 3 Ghanaian tertiary institutions as degree mills. This comes after the ministry announced the temporary suspension of evaluation and accreditation of degree certificates from the Republic of Benin and Togo. We also told you that fresh attack by Boko Haram terrorists on the Gatamawa community in Chibok local government area, Borno State, has left 12 people dead and 2 others injured. Confirming the attack on Wednesday, the Borno State Police Command said it happened on Monday evening. According to the police public relations officer, Nahum Dasso, the gunmen drove into the community in Hilux vans and motorcycles in large numbers, shooting sporadically. Now, in case you missed any of our news bulletins or for more updates, you can catch us on Limex World TV or log on to our website on www.tv360nigeria.com. You can also follow us on our social media platforms on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at TV360 Nigeria, or download our mobile app on Google Play Store, Huawei App Gallery, and Apple Store. On Facebook, we're at TV360 Online. Nigeria's economy in 2023 faced many challenges. 2 of them were the Naira redesign and the removal of fuel subsidy. The effect of these policies has affected the masses whose purchasing power has reduced, therefore creating a slow economic growth which will require a fit-for-purpose economic blueprint to change the narrative. Correspondent Tamilore Akinkolie tells us more on how the Nigerian economy fared in 2023 in this report.
As the world economy grapples with the aftermath of COVID-19 pandemic and new challenges induced by the Russia-Ukraine conflict, economic growth has lowered and the inflation rate is heightened in both advanced and emerging economies. Nigeria isn't an exception, as the gross domestic product for the year declined to 2.87, the lowest since the pandemic. This performance was a result of a combination of policy mismatch and other challenges. One of the prominent mismatch policies that affected Nigeria in 2023 was the new Naira redesign that led to decreased sales volume and economic slow growth. Like central banks in other developing nations, the Central Bank of Nigeria (CBN's) major aim early in 2023 was to accomplish its monetary policy objectives by controlling the money supply. The Naira reform was expected to provide a chance to solidify the cashless policy, enhance the effectiveness of monetary policy, and assist in decreasing terrorism and kidnapping. Therefore, 200, 500, and 1,000 Naira notes were redesigned.
We will not shift any deadline. What we have done is not against the law. It is in tandem with the law. We announced this program on October the 26th, 2022, and we said that upon release of the new currency, that the legal tender status will run concurrently with the old currency till 31st January 2023. That is almost 100 days.
Before the 2023 general election commenced, the CBN issued a policy that the old notes will no longer be legal tenders for transactions. Nigerians turned out en masse to embrace the policy by depositing their cash in the bank, hoping to exchange them with the new notes. Unfortunately, the CBN could not manage the demand for cash and it ignored calls for deadline extension. Cash became scarce, electronic transfers could not cope with the transaction surge, and the frequency of failed transactions increased as they remained unsolved for months. Only the affluent could get cash during the dark days of the CBN Naira redesign.
The situation has affected everybody. You can look. Everywhere is dry. People are not buying markets because there's no money. People who are doing business are not selling. So how we show the extension is going to help. So it's left for the CBN and the government to know what they're supposed to do to help the situation.
Ever since the introduction of the new Naira notes, we have been having issues getting money from the bank, and right now to even get old notes and the new notes is a very big challenge. Even if you go to the bank, tell them want to withdraw 100k. Before you can get the 100k, you even have to pay to get the 100k.
The Naira redesign policy did not achieve the desired result in terms of monetary policy, because I get what you're trying to say. They were using it as a tool to mop up excess liquidity in the system. But that did not happen because, again, when you're talking about mopping out excess liquidity, at that time, they said they were able to get 2.1 trillion that were outside the banking space into the banking space, but we still have about 900-something billion that was still outside. And again, if that policy has really been successful, then we won't be having the cash crunch that we're having in another peak period of now.
Oil plays an important role in the Nigerian economy, contributing about a third of the country's gross domestic product right from the 1980s till date. While Nigerians were still trying to recover from the Naira redesign problem, the newly elected President Bola Ahmed Tinubu during his inauguration ceremony announced the removal of fuel subsidy, which had an adverse effect on the economy.
The budget that I've glimpsed before I assume office and what I've heard is that no provision is there for fuel subsidy. The fuel subsidy is gone.
This announcement was one of the major setbacks for Nigeria's economy, as oil prices shock generated significant implications for output, prices, exchange rate, and government revenues.
So I don't know what government is going to do to rectify this, because there is this issue on ground is going to affect everything in the country, both food, transport, not only transportation, everything will paralyze. If it continues like this, I think government needs to come out and do something.
The problem about it now, it will be so difficult on Nigerians because it will affect everything in the market, everything, both house rent and everything. So it's not fair.
One of the multiplier effects of the fuel subsidy removal is the escalation of inflation rate, as the country witnessed the highest inflation rate in November, soaring to 28.2%, accompanied by a constricted economic landscape.
Food is cheaper in the north, but it's more expensive in the south. That means that we have food available in the north, but the cost of moving it down to the south is actually way high. And that is driving our inflation to go up.
Definitely it had its own impact, and that impact was shown in what we see in the NBS, Nigerian Bureau of Statistics report. So definitely what we've seen that driven inflation to where it is today has to do with the Naira exchange rate volatility between the Naira and the dollar.
Experts said that if the Dangote and Port Harcourt refineries become operational in the new year, it could reduce the pressure on foreign exchange and alleviate the economic challenges.
If Dangote refinery, who has received 2 million barrels of crude now, can commence operation, can begin to refine products, let's say from towards the ending of January 2024, then it's going to be good for our economy.
Amidst the sluggish economic growth that the country experienced, several international companies chose to exit Nigeria for diverse reasons. Some cited the burden of multiple taxes as a significant factor that contributed to their departure. Analysts foresee that this exodus could exert pressure on the exchange rate between the dollar and the naira.
They will produce whatever they are producing, and then they will still push it back to Nigeria, which is the market, where we got the population.
They are going to push those commodities, those goods and services back to us, and we have to pay for them in dollars, no longer in naira, while they were here in Nigeria. So we have to pay for those goods and services now in dollars, which will also now mount more pressure on our USD.
The Central Bank of Nigeria said that it will tackle the rising inflation and exchange rate issues in 2024 as it predicts an improved economic outlook for the country. Tamilore Akinkwoliye, TV360 Lagos.
I'll take another break. The stock market report is up next. Nigeria's equities market furthered its positive rally into 2024, rising by 2.04% on Wednesday as the NGX All-Share Index increased to 77,537.57 basis points, indicating a year-to-date return of 3.71%. Wednesday's market capitalization also increased to 42.4 trillion naira, while the market turnover increased to 10.6 billion naira. 76 stocks advanced and 7 stocks declined, indicating a positive market breadth. Dangote Sugar Refinery topped the gainers list with a 10% share price appreciation, followed by National Salt Company, also with a 10% share price appreciation. Wednesday's data shows 80% improvement in volume, 92% improvement in turnover, and 24% improvement in deals. On the flip side, foreign shares slipped on Wednesday after Wall Street started 2024 with a slump, giving back some big gains from last year. So our select foreign stocks are not left out of the loss, with the UK's FTSE and US Dow Jones trade ending in the bear zone, while the Japan's Nikkei maintained its low trade as well. In other stories, U.S. President Joe Biden will aim to jumpstart his re-election campaign in the coming week with events designed to symbolize the fight for democracy and racial justice against opponent Donald Trump. The Biden-Harris campaign announced the plans in a conference call with reporters that mentioned Trump by name 28 times in just 24 minutes, a sign of its determination to draw a sharp contrast between the U.S. president and his likely Republican challenger. But Biden enters the new year with the lowest approval rating of any modern-day president seeking re-election. Voters have expressed concerns over crime, immigration, and inflation, which hit 40-year highs in 2022. And on sports, Super Eagles Africa Cup of Nations conquest suffered a setback as Wilfred Ndidi has been ruled out of Nigeria's 2023 football fiesta campaign because of injury. The 27-year-old Leicester City midfielder was named the Super Eagles 25-man squad on December 29, but was absent from his club's side win over Huddersfield Town on Monday. Royal Antwerp midfielder Al-Hassan Yusuf has been called up to replace him. Correspondent Jide Olaniro completes the story.
It's really a disappointing news, but Nigerians are still hopeful. Indeed, Leicester City's teammate Kelechi Iheanacho will be able to join the squad. Kelechi, who has scored Nigeria's only goal against Zambia in the last 2026 World Cup qualifier in November, has missed Leicester's last 2 games in the championship with a muscle problem. The Super Eagles as a team has struggled anytime Wilfred Ndidi is not playing, and Kelechi Iheanacho has over time proved to be a super substitute in the squad on a number of occasions. He has saved the team's blushes. Super Eagles' first game in Group A is against Equatorial Guinea on the 14th of January, just some days from now. And the second game is against the host Ivory Coast before the final game against the first country to name a squad for the tournament, Guinea-Bissau. From the heart of Lagos, This is Jide Olaniro for TV 360.
And that ends our bulletin. Thank you for staying with us. See you next time.